here last week, the Revolution will be televised, and it was televised last weekend. Another outstanding pay-per-view from AEW. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, the most impactful moments, the implications going forward. We are also going to ease on into Wrestlemania season. I know you all love when I talk like that. And talk about why Wrestlemania is so important to us, some memorable moments for us over the years in our time watching Wrestlemania. But first, let's intro this bad boy. I'm Brian, the intellectual savior of the wrestling masses. I am joined this week by the muscle of wrestling with egos, the Big Don himself, Isaac, my brother. What's good with you on a Friday night?
I'm ready to go. I'm good. Long week, but we're ready to go. Let's do this.
Ready to go. Glad to hear it. We want you to interact with us. Hit us up on Twitter, Wrestling X Egos on Twitter. Our Facebook page is also Wrestling with Egos. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, on Google, on Anchor, and that old standby intergalactic radio. We appreciate the interaction. We appreciate you spreading the word, liking, subscribing, sharing, and all of those good things, because that is what we thrive on. And yes, Isaac, you were getting ready. You held that 5 up. I know what you're getting ready to say.
5-star rating, please. Appreciate it.
Yes, want that 5-star rating. Drive for 500 subscribers is still on. We're pounding the pavement. We're trying to make it happen. We get to 500 subscribers. Patrick gets woo chopped on live television. High and tight. Woo! Woo! We want to make it happen. But first of all, I have the results in front of me here from the Revolution pay-per-view. We did pretty well, actually, all of us predicting the matches. There were not a lot of things that went according to plan. You picked up big-time points by correctly stating that Britt Baker would retain. And so a lot of the matches went the way we thought they would go, and there really was not a lot of dissension or disagreement amongst us. We're not going to go match by match, because we're trying to mind the time and mind the discourse. For me, Isaac, I don't know if you agree with me or not, the most impactful moment was in the conclusion of the Jon Moxley Bryan Danielson match, where they had a wonderful match, and they were still brawling. Referees are out, security's out, can't do anything, and then all of a sudden the camera cuts to the ramp, and who should walk out next to the ramp and kind of size everybody up but his lordship William Regal. And he gets in the ring and he smacks some sense into both men and tells them, you've already fought, you've already bled, now shake hands like gentlemen and let's get on with things. And I thought that was something, because the ramifications of this, I'll let you say first what you think this means, but I spent most of this week thinking about the ramifications of what it means that William Regal is all elite. And, oh boy, what say you first of all?
Okay, the big ramifications. Of course, I can't say that well, because this week has been rough. Let's just leave it at that, boys and girls. The ramifications are that William Regal, who was the glue of WWE at one point in time, especially of NXT,
Agreed.
And the development of some of the stars that we have today, whether they be in NXT, whether they be in the main roster, whether it be Raw or SmackDown, or those athletes that are no longer with the company and they're somewhere else and they have a huge name to them, is based upon William Regal. And we all sit here and know we could rattle off names left and right like they were members of the NWO and be like, that dude, that dude, that dude, that dude, and how much he means to a company. The fact that the WWE decided to let him go, in my personal opinion, you were dumb as hell. If you want to let somebody like that go, that's your deal. I don't know if there was something else that was going on behind the scenes, which we do not probably know. That's fine too. But he was the glue that kept things together. He's the one that helped develop these young men and women to get to them to the levels that they are at today on the main roster and doing quite well. And now he's with your opposite company. And now you have to deal with the fact that you don't have him anymore. That's your fault. That's on you. And that is the biggest thing I keep thinking to myself is going to bite you in your ass.
Yeah.
And you haven't been putting on really good stuff lately. Everyone else is. And that's where I have a problem with that. Um, you're letting him go to the competition. That's fine, but we I thought about this years ago when WWE specifically bought WCW, and they didn't have any competition really on TV. They could put out crappy matches, but there's no competition, so it's the only thing you can watch.
Yeah.
Well, now you have competition, and now you have somebody else sitting here putting on better matches and doing better than you. Now you got to step up your game, and you haven't. Good luck.
The big thing that I'll say about William Regal, specifically, he's had a great in-ring career, but I would argue that he's been more valuable helping other people develop.
I agree.
It's no secret the demons that he's had to fight, and things like that. And I thought he had a very eloquent promo on Wednesday night, a very heartfelt promo on Wednesday night, where he kind of laid out, like his origin story, if you will. And if you don't know about him, hard scrabble upbringing, and he's had to take care of personal issues, a lot like everybody's got to take care of personal issues. And he admitted that those personal issues took years off of his career. But he realized that he could give back to the wrestling business by training others. And his life intersects with a lot of other people's lives. As you said, a whole litany of people. My earliest memories of William Regal are as a behind-the-scenes guy with Triple H and WCW, for example. He was out there for a brief time. He'd be in the ring, William Regal would be outside. I know watching all the NXT documentaries that I've watched. Excuse me, William Regal is always there, offering gentle words of encouragement or some pointed criticism. If you need the sharp end of the stick, I'll give you the sharp end of the stick. If you want, somebody to lean on, you can have that too. But everybody talks glowingly about the man. And the ramifications of this, I wondered about Moxley and Danielson just adrift without somebody to focus them in. And that's what William Regal is going to do. I don't know that he's going to get in there and mix it up and get physical that much. But he'll be the guy backstage, like in the locker room, like when they're cutting a promo, maybe like whispering something in Moxley's ear. Don't forget to say this or something like that. Or, sitting there with Danielson, when you're talking about this young talent you want to go after to, bring into your stable, you might want to go look at that guy over there. You might want to go look at that guy over there. That's where I think his role is going to be most fleshed out. Is kind of like the decider, if you will, for for this faction, because Moxley and Danielson together is scary enough.
God, yeah.
It's a dynamic that shouldn't work, because even when Regal was cutting his promo Wednesday night, you had Danielson just kind of off to one side with a smile on his face, and you have Moxley, pacing like a wild animal. And it's like, I don't quite know how this is going to work, but Regal is the one that focuses the action in a lot of the same ways that Paul Heyman has done for Brock Lesnar and is doing for Roman Reigns right now. He focuses the energy onto a specific point. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I do know that he has some banging t-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com that you can purchase. Some great designs. May be worth checking out for me here in the next couple of months. You know, taking a trip onto ProWrestlingTees.com and grabbing a couple. So it's going to be interesting to see what this unit looks like, because it's a heel and a babyface as a tag team, and that usually doesn't work. But I think with Regal as kind of the glue behind the scenes holding it together, it could work. I don't know if you're going to get the stable aspect of it like we thought we might. That could be like put to the side now, you know, like, you know, we get Wheeler Yuta and we get Daniel Garcia and we get Lee Moriarty and, you know, Captain Sean Dean and people like that. I don't know if we're still going to see that or not. But the fact that Regal is there now kind of shepherding these two makes it worthwhile.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree on that. I also want to bring up one more point. Since we all know, I don't want to say John. I want to say John Moxley, but for some reason I was thinking Dean Ambrose. I don't know why I was thinking that right now. But since he's gone through his, since he came back after he went, you know, his problems with alcoholism, and with Regal, it has a history with alcoholism. If you don't know, this is the perfect mentor.
Oh, yes.
In that aspect, especially right now since he's getting back on track and he has someone else there with him. Yes, it might be a great dynamic to have him and Bryan Danielson, which is scary as hell, we all know, with those two individually and combined. Oh my God, everyone stay the hell away. That's scary enough right there. But having someone as an anchor, as you said before, to hold both of these guys down, it's going to be very interesting to see what direction that they go. Are they going to go tag team titles? Are they going to go up against the Young Bucks to see the dynamics of those? You know, are they going to go up against Red Dragon? Are they going to go up against the reunited Hardy Boys? Are they going to go up against Sting and Darby? How's that going to work? You know, but the options are endless right now.
The tag, I feel like we say this every time we talk about AEW. The tag division is just, there's so many permutations. I mean, you throw into that the fact that FTR apparently fired Tully Blanchard. You know, and I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's just, you know, trying to rock people to sleep and then surprise, swerve, we're back, that kind of thing. But which actually brings me to the other AEW thing I wanted to talk about. The other match that I was watching with great interest. I told you guys last week that this was the match that I was looking forward to the most, was the Eddie Kingston-Chris Jericho match. And there were some scary moments in this match, starting with Jericho getting dumped on his head early on, which reports have come out. I can't remember who the reports were from, but that was the plan. The plan was that Jericho was going to make it look like he took a ding to the head, and that he was going to sell this throughout the rest of the match. So yes, it was an awkward suplex, I think, but there was a reason behind it. It was part of the storyline. The crowd was super into the match the whole time. They were chanting for Eddie. Eddie Kingston gets the big win that he's been searching for. And then Jericho refuses to shake his hand. So with great interest on Wednesday night, our very first GOAT episode 2+ years ago was about Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has become so good at reeling you in when you know what's about to happen. Like, I was watching the interplay between Kingston and Jericho on Wednesday night, and I knew there was going to be some kind of a beatdown. But even so, like, Jericho was so heartfelt in what he was saying and so demonstrative in trying to, praise Eddie. And even though you knew what was about to happen, you knew there was about to be a double cross somehow. And then, sure enough, the low blow happens or whatever, and Proud and Powerful come out, and then 2.0 and Daniel Garcia come out, and then that's when Jericho comes up with the Jericho Appreciation Society, which is a lame name, but it's the whole point of it. It's supposed to be lame. It's supposed to be, look at me being a glory hound, and look at me trying to hang on to my spotlight and all of that. Isaac, what are your thoughts first about how much more credibility Eddie Kingston earned from the win? And second of all, like, Jericho's role in all of this, he's not quite ready to hang it up just yet.
Okay, Jericho, Eddie getting the win is gigantic, to say huge, for him, because you need someone to put their stamp on you and make you look fantastic at the same time and put you over like there's no other. And Chris Jericho did exactly what he needed to do. And he did it well, and he sold it, and he was c'est magnifique.
That could be another reason why he got into such great shape, too. We talked about how his physique has improved over the past several months. He probably needed to work on the cardio. I'm going to have to make Eddie look good, and I know what kind of a bruising match Eddie Kingston gives me. I'm going to have to change my cardio up a little bit and cut some weight here so that I can hang with them and call the spots and all that kind of stuff.
I think the fact that you have to have someone to put their stamp on you and say, I'm going to make this guy look good. And I've said this a million times before with other people. And I'll bring up the fact of Chris Benoit when he won the match at WrestleMania 20 against Hunter and Shawn Michaels, both at the same time. And then a couple months later, he faced him individually. And they put the rub on him to make him solidified as a champion. And that's exactly what Jericho did to Eddie. And it was well deserved. It was well done. I didn't really see the swerve happening. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It was one of those deals where, because I usually don't see the swerves happening either. But then when, Jericho came out, and I'm like, okay, you're laying it on awfully thick here. And you want Eddie to come out to the ring. And I remember I was messaging RJ while I was watching it Wednesday night, and I said, Eddie Kingston is next level. He's life-altering. He's that good. Because there were people in the audience trying to, hey, your buddy Steve Austin isn't here right now. It's not Dallas, Texas. How about showing some respect? And the what chance went away right there. I don't like it when the fans try to hijack the show. I really don't, because it doesn't work most of the time. The what chant when it first happened was funny, but it's really outlived its usefulness. I wish people would check themselves and not, feel the need to interject themselves. Everybody's out there trying to earn their living, and if they're not great on the microphone, or if they happen to pause between clauses of their sentence. That's not an invitation for you to chant something necessarily. But Eddie Kingston did about as great as I've ever seen shutting that down and getting it back on message, because we have a story to tell here. And the story apparently is that the Inner Circle is no more, because Jake Hager sided with 2.0 and Jericho as well, and Daniel Garcia. And now you have Eddie Kingston and Proud and Powerful, who are thick as thieves. We know this. As the baby faces in this feud. I think it's going to be interesting going forward to see how does Proud and Powerful look coming out of this, because I've said for months now that they should be in the title picture more than they are, because those two guys
can go.
Yes. I mean, you pick any match you want. I mean, the parking lot brawl with Best Friends in 2020 was amazing. One of our match of the year candidates for that year. And I just wish they were more of a focal point versus having to be like second, third, fourth fiddle to a bigger star.
I agree. I just think this is their time to get the rub that you need to get from other tag teams. You need to get FTR to say, all right, we see where you're at, and we want to make you look as good as you possibly can, just like everyone else is making FTR look fantastic. And at the same time, this is your chance to make, you bring them up, not like you have to bring them up. You just have to let them shine. And this is the perfect opportunity to let them shine and make yourself look fantastic at the same time. You got two teams that know what they're doing. They're very good at what they do. Let them go. And just make them look fantastic on both ends. And that's what we should be doing.
So we will definitely keep tabs on all of this going forward. AEW seems like on a weekly basis they give us something to talk about. As Isaac mentioned a couple minutes ago, Jeff Hardy is now also All Elite. The Hardy Boys are back together again. My guess is that they do a thing with the remnants of the Hardy family office, because I don't think that's a thing anymore. The thing that has me intrigued about Jeff Hardy being in AEW, I'm not saying you need to do it right now, but wouldn't it be cool if at the end of 2022 we had a little encounter between Jeff Hardy and CM Punk? Think about the history those two have. That would be interesting, especially if perhaps by that point, as a lot of people are speculating, Punk has gone heel. Because I feel like the seeds might be being sown. Like maybe he comes out of this encounter with MJF and he's got a big head all of a sudden, and maybe like late spring, early summer, you start seeing a heel turn happening. That's when you have a Punk Jeff Hardy encounter, because Jeff Hardy has to be the babyface in that. And Punk can go back to the proselytizing that was the basis of their WWE feud. That's just speculation on my part. Obviously, I heard that the plans are to do some of the broken universe stuff, and I don't know how well that'll play cinematically in AEW the way it did when it was just on the YouTube channel or whatever that they were doing it, and it got all those views. Was that 2018 or 2019 they were doing that? I forget what the year was.
It had to be 2018, yeah.
Yeah. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we just have to see how that works and if that happens. I think there's so many people that Jeff probably wants to get into it with over at AEW. That would be fantastic matches that we would love to see.
Whether it's tags or singles. I mean, and the Punk story is always going to be there. I'm not saying you have to do it right now. I'm sure there's any number of people lining up telling Jeff, hey, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to, you know. But my guess is they would explore the tag team aspect of it first to continue, like, enhancing that tag division. Because there is not a tag team that would not benefit from working with them, obviously. I mean, the Bucks is an obvious one because the Hardys and the Bucks have had matches before, but never on this kind of a platform.
Absolutely.
So, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, the calendar is turning towards WrestleMania. WrestleMania will be happening April 2nd and April 3rd in Dallas, Texas. 2-night event. Love the fact that it's a 2-night event because a 5.5-hour WrestleMania on Sunday night is. And I thought it would be a good opportunity this evening to talk about why we love WrestleMania so much. You hear us say all the time, this is why we love professional wrestling. I dare say that WrestleMania is up there on the list of reasons why we love professional wrestling so much. Isaac, I'll start with you. What is it about WrestleMania in general? Just thinking about the event as a whole. Nothing specific just yet, because we're going to get there in a minute. Why is it such an important event for wrestling fans, wrestlers? Why do we spend so much time talking about it?
This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the Super Bowl for us. This is, even though this wrestling thing, as we call it, is year round, this is our Super Bowl. This is our World Series. This is, as we call it, this is our March Madness. This is, the NBA Finals. This is it. This is what you work for all year round, to be in the best shape, to look fantastic for, to, be remembered looking like, the Greek god, that you've been doing, trying to cut weight, trying to, do something that's different, trying to stand out, trying to make a memory that everyone's going to say, oh my God, I remember when so and so did that. That's what I think of when I see WrestleMania. Yes, it's extra pyro. Yes, it's different looks. It's different everything. And we can say The Undertaker, specifically for this reason. He came out differently every single time. It was a level that you stood there and said, "Oh my God, he came out with a horse and carriage." He came out one year, which I thought was amazing. He had all the caskets, all the people that he beaten, and Brock Lesnar's one blew up. But one time he came out for CM Punk, and you saw the hands,
Yes.
reaching for him, which I thought was so freaking cool. Everyone's entrances are ramped up. Everyone's ready. Everyone's trying to do their best. No one's out the night before getting drunk or hungover. They're ready. They're thinking about what they have to do, and they are trying to put on the best performance of their lives each WrestleMania. And that's what I think of when I think of WrestleMania. This is the peak. Will they get back there next year? Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone, next year, and if they're going to be there. But this is the time that they're there, and this is what they want to do, and this is their time to shine. That's what I think of when I think of WrestleMania. That's why I focus so much on, oh, this is fantastic, or this is great.
For me, it's, historically we've looked at WrestleMania as the culmination of all the storylines that they're working on. You look at something like the Mega Powers exploding at WrestleMania 5. You look at something like Hulk versus Andre at WrestleMania 3. You look at something like the triple threat at WrestleMania 20 that you've referenced, involving Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. things of that nature. And you want, we had a discussion in the pre-show. We were talking about the college basketball tournaments that are happening right now. You want to be hitting your stride at the right time. And when you head into these tentpole pay-per-views like WWE has on their calendar, you want every match to mean something. And sometimes it's hard to say that with a lot of the builds and things like that, because you can call it nostalgia, call it longing for a simpler time and things like that, but through the eye of history, I mean, we say, oh yeah, WrestleMania 10 was the perfect build, and they had all these things, and maybe at the time you wouldn't have thought it was. Like if you had been looking at it with this critical of an eye back then, who knows what you would have thought about the build for it. And I will say that, almost right before our eyes, this card is starting to like fill up and get kind of juicy, for this year's WrestleMania, because you have Edge and AJ Styles, you have Roman and Brock for, to unify, title for title. You have the women's championship matches that are going to be awesome, I hope, with Becky and Bianca Belair and Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. To say nothing of the other, special attraction type matches that you're going to have. For me, though, what I love is just being able to get together with my friends who are also wrestling fans, one of whom is in the other camera looking at you right then and there. However we do it, whether it's been in person or whether it's been through Google Meets or whatever, that we're just kind of interacting with, with each other. Because we all have our own opinions about how we think things should go, how we think they should do things, who we think should win, the mistakes that we think they've made and everything like that. And wrestling is at its best when it's a communal activity. That's the most important thing. And you ask this question of 100 different people, you're bound to get 100 different answers, but some of them are bound to be somewhat similar. And Isaac, I'll start with you on this. Tell me, we're going to come up with 3 of our favorite WrestleMania moments as we round out the show tonight. We're going to talk about them a little bit at length, why they're so impactful for us. If you were going to start making a list of your most impactful WrestleMania moments, what would you start with and why?
Okay, the first one that jumped out in the top of my mind was Eugene being at WrestleMania 21. And I'm going to explain in just 2 seconds. And the reason I'm saying that is Eugene came out and I was, oh, it's Eugene. And then you had Muhammad Hassan that came out after him, and beat the living crap out of him, of course. And then all of a sudden you hear Hulk Hogan's music. And that was the year he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. The reason WrestleMania was what it was and the impact that it had was the moment that music hit and you saw everyone that was in that crowd lose their freaking mind. And, you saw that place.
Lying if I said it didn't happen to me too.
you stood here. If you didn't do that, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a wrestling fan. You didn't understand why it was so impactful that Hulk Hogan, when you hear that music and you hear I'm a Real American and you flip out and you don't jump out of your seat and you are not screaming, yeah! This is why we love wrestling. That particular moment was the one thing I was like, oh my God, yes. And you're sitting here and he's hitting him and you're like, boo. You hear the whole crowd doing the same thing. He's hulking up. Oh my God. This is why we love wrestling. That particular moment sums it up right there for me. Boom. That's number one. I'll get some others, but right then, that moment, him posing, and you just see the crowd just loving every second of it. That's the reason why we love wrestling. That's why we love WrestleMania.
I've talked a lot on this show about my origin story as it pertains to professional wrestling. And the first event I ever saw as a child was WrestleMania 3. But I'm not going where you think I'm going with this. Yes, the main event was Hogan and Andre the Giant. But even as, how old would I have been at that point? That's 86.
83?
No, because WrestleMania 1 was 80. I was either like a second grader or a third grader at that point, I would think. The thing that captivated me then and every time I've watched that event since then is the Intercontinental Championship match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Randy Savage. Because, yes, as a child, I was drawn in by the theatricality and the posing and the presentation of the Hulkster, but I was able to see beyond all of that to the fact that once you get inside the ropes, you now were expected to tell a story. And the story that Steamboat and Savage told that night was spectacular because they had the chops to go in the ring. And I've learned since this point about how much Savage planned it out to the point where he had so many pages of notes that Steamboat had to memorize, and we're going to call it, and we're going to do this. That was just how Savage worked. And if you were going to be in a match with him, that's how you had to do things. I don't even like the theatricality of this match so much as I do the match itself, because I could do without the George the Animal Steel, and the Miss Elizabeth and all that kind of stuff. Just give me those two guys in the ring wrestling and counter wrestling. The aerial moves off the top rope and the chops, the knife edge chops that Steamboat used to do. For me, that was like where the love affair started. Even though, yes, I marked out for Hulk, the way any, 8 or 9-year-old would at that time, being presented with that. For me, that was the flashpoint that started this love affair for me, was, watching that Savage Steamboat match. And it still holds up today, by the way. If you've never seen that match, boys and girls, or if it's been a while since you've seen that match, you then cue up the network, WrestleMania 3, and skip ahead to the Savage Steamboat match and watch it and treat yourself, because you will not regret it.
That is, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that's where you were going with it. And yes, that is a certifiable masterclass, ladies and gentlemen.
You didn't think I was going to say Hercules versus Bad News Brown, did you? I mean,
that was a great match. I'm not kidding, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? Yeah. We sit here and say, when we think of WrestleMania 3, yes, we think of Hulk, Andre, but 1A is Savage Steamboat, and we sit here and we say, oh my God, that was a masterclass. And you stood here, you saw ring psychology, you saw tremendous athleticism on both men's part, doing things that you're like, how are they even doing this?
The stamina that both of them had too, because that was like a 20-minute match, as I recall. That wasn't like a 3-minute squash match.
But they were not dialing this in. They weren't dialing this match in. They were in this match, and it was high intensity, it was high speed, and they were doing it. They were doing the thing. And we sit here, and then you kept saying to yourself, yes, you want to have the hype of an Andre Hulk match, and what they're doing like right now with Brock and Roman, which is fine. But the problem of it is you have Edge versus AJ Styles, and I look at that as Steamboat and Savage. And I sit
the steak to go with your sizzle.
That's where the meat is. And that's what you're going to sit back and say, that's what I wanted to see. Because, yeah, you got two big bruiser guys who are out here doing whatever, but you don't get to see the ring psychology of two pros at the top of their game. Yes, they may or may not be getting ready to go into retirement within the next couple of years because they both put in the time, which is fantastic. But I'm just saying, this is what we've all wanted to see for years.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting here talking, just Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 10. We're sitting here talking about other matches that we sit here and say, okay, remember this match, Bret Hart versus Owen, even though that went long as all get out. Um, and you see the ring psychology. You see Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart, where Bret was bleeding all over the place, and what made Stone Cold Stone Cold. You sit here and you say that's what we want to see. We want to see the ring psychology. We want to see the athleticism. It's not just we want to see him get knocked out in one punch. We want to see those things, and we want to. That's what WrestleMania is about. Yes, there's always going to be that big match. No, we're waiting for this, but you want to see this person versus this person, and you want to see them interact. You want to see a Kurt Angle versus a Chris Benoit, what they had at Armageddon, where you sit there, you see after that match, everyone in the crowd stood up and applauded at that match. That's what you see at WrestleMania.
What would your next big event mania moment be? Even though you just listed about 20 of them. I'm mad at you. I'm kidding.
A lot of the times they say, well, you don't know your wrestling history. And I say, oh, yes, I do. I'm going to prove it right now.
I've never said that.
I've had a couple people say, well, the next match that comes to mind is Angle versus Shawn Michaels. I think it was WrestleMania
21.
Yes. Certifiable masterclass. Boom. End of story. Mic drop moment. You have two guys at the top of their game putting in work, and you're sitting here. You have an Olympic gold athlete, an Olympic gold medalist against possibly one of the greatest performers of all time in Shawn Michaels. And Shawn was healthy at the time. And
yes.
we need to make sure we say Shawn was healthy. And you see both of them not, doing what they did best. And you're sitting here like, oh my God, these guys are good. And these guys are putting on a show for a lifetime. And that's what you want to sit here and say. You want to sit here and say, oh my God, that was a masterclass. Boom. End of story.
Any Shawn Michaels match. I mean, it would be easy for me to sit here and say any of the Shawn versus Taker matches, but I feel like everybody talks about those. That's why I've been trying to go in a different direction with some of these. You alluded to my next one in your litany a little bit ago.
You're welcome.
WrestleMania 13, Steve Austin and Bret Hart, the double turn. I struggled to find a more compelling presentation of a babyface doing a heel turn as what they did with Bret Hart in 96 into 97. Because we've said it before on this show, the best heels are the ones that, the heel turn is most convincing when the heel is right. Bret did everything that was asked of him and then some. And because the powers that be got infatuated with somebody else, and because he decided he wanted to take some time off, and he came back and he didn't recognize the WWF that he was coming back to. And that's when he started kind of getting a little whiny on the promos, and a little bit of the boo birds were coming out, and the commentary would needle him a little bit and things like that. And that's where, Austin was starting to get hot at this point, and everybody's going to cheer him. And Bret's like, this is the guy you're going to cheer for? He flips people off and he swears and he, does all of these things. And it was a great match because Bret's trying to act holier than thou, But Brett's not above cheating. Brett's not above throwing a figure 4 on the ring post. Brett's not above using an extension cord to try and choke Austin out or introduce the ring bell into the match or all of those things. And I didn't realize at the time, but then going back and watching, I'm like, my God, what brilliant heel work. He's shaking his finger at you. How dare you boo me and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you a reason to boo me again. I'm going to choke him out with the extension cord. And, just a brilliant, brilliant match in terms of the psychology. We say we always have the ring psychology. Ken Shamrock is the special guest referee, as a legitimate special guest referee, not some stooge who just put a ref shirt on over his shirt and tie. Shamrock's the guy that understands what you're in there to do, and if you don't listen to him, he'll beat you up. It's not like Earl Hebner out here. It's Ken Shamrock is not to be messed with. So all of those elements, I mean, I love it when all of these disparate elements come together. Like, you don't think it should work, but then it works and it's brilliant. And then, of course, that visual of Austin the sharpshooter and the blood streaming down his face. They made a big hot-selling T-shirt out of it. But just that visual of, my goodness, this guy is passed out in a pool of his own blood. And he never really did tap. I mean, Shamrock just stopped the match because Austin was unresponsive. And that match is what I think starts Brett's descent into madness going into Survivor Series 97. Because that whole summer, he's still simmering about how he's being treated and the fact that everybody loves the boy toy more and you love Austin more. And what about me? What about, that sort of thing. So that's why I always look at that match as one of my favorites, too. How about your third and final WrestleMania moment of the evening? Even though I know we could go on for 10 hours about this sort of stuff, but.
I know. I'll let you go and give me a second to actually think about this, because there's a lot of their flying through my head at this point.
You're trying to sort through all the honorable mentions.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
As I said earlier, it would be easy for me to talk about Undertaker, Shawn Michaels from either 25 or 26. But everybody and their brother talks about those two matches. So I'm going to go 1 year earlier. WrestleMania 24, Undertaker versus Edge. Gets a chef's kiss from your boy. Because one of the great things that happens at WrestleMania is when, as you said before, you get a stamp put on your career. And I think this match was where Edge got the stamp put on his career. He went toe-to-toe with The Undertaker. He got the ring psychology. He got his stuff in. He had The Undertaker on his heels for a lot of this match. Because I believe this was the match with one of those awkward swan dives out of the ring that Undertaker really had no business doing by this point. And it could have gone horribly wrong. And you had Edge at this point trying to assert himself as, hey, I'm in the main event scene here too. I know you think of me as tag team guy or Intercontinental Championship guy, but I'm main event caliber, and I'm going to prove it to you by putting the WWF Championship on the line against The Undertaker here. And it's one of my favorite WrestleMania visuals, too, because that was the one that was in Orlando at the old, I forget what the name of the stadium was, the old Orange Bowl? No, or was it Miami? I forget if it was Miami or Orlando. But I know the company spent a ton of money to fill out the stadium and with the palm trees and the this and the that. And you had that thing, the backdrop that looked like a hotel, That
was Orlando, I believe. If I'm
yes, Orlando.
Sure.
And so it was that visual of Edge doing this, and the camera's like shooting up at him. And you see all the fireworks and pyro going off over the top of his head. And that marquee just with the laser light show and everything like that. It's one of my favorite WrestleMania visuals. It was the match, I think, that solidified The Undertaker, because this is right in the middle of his unbeaten streak. It was at like 14-0 or something like that at this point, because he had already beaten Orton. He had already beaten, Big Show and A-Train, and that sort of thing. But when you start, this is where the opponent's caliber starts getting ramped up for Undertaker, because you went from Orton to Edge to Shawn twice to Triple H twice to CM Punk, and it's like, oh my God, is he ever going to be beaten at WrestleMania? This match, I think, is what got Undertaker on that trajectory too, to this mythical streak, and who can dare beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania? We could do a whole show on that streak too, because at the beginning it wasn't much to write home about. But it was right around. Well, at the beginning, I mean, you're beating Giant Gonzalez.
I keep thinking back to Giant Gonzalez, like, oh my God,
Superfly Snuka, and people like that.
King Kong Bundy, Jake the Snake. I can rattle off a bunch of them that we had, but
it's around this point where you start realizing, okay, yeah, he's 11-0, he's 12-0, he's 13-0, but he's not beating pushovers anymore. He's not beating inconsequential jobbers or legends who are long in the tooth or things like that. He's going up against the best the locker room has to offer, and he's turning back every challenge. So for me, that's why I kind of give this one the nod. I mean, for me, it's between this one and the CM Punk match at 29 that I kind of keep going back and forth on, because the CM Punk match is an underrated gem. And it probably should have been the main event, of that WrestleMania. Say what you will about Cena, Rock, and all that other stuff, but I mean, those are my three kind of diamonds in the rough. And I don't know if this is so much an unpopular opinion, but since WrestleMania 30, where Daniel Bryan beat Batista and Orton in the triple threat main event, I struggled to find moments that are worth adding to this list from 31 on. Yes, you have your matches here and there, but like these life-altering, like touchstones that we're talking about. I mean, I struggle to think about more recent ones. I mean, the Firefly Funhouse and the Boneyard match are always going to be cool, and they're always worth a second look or a third look, but for me, these moments have been harder and harder to come by recently, and I guess that's because I have such exacting standards.
Okay.
Have you thought of a third one?
Third one. Got it.
That we're gonna wrap it on up with and ease on out of the saloon here.
We're gonna ease out of the saloon, and this is ring psychology on both parts of these two individuals that have this match. And they're two of the best that ever did it. Best ever do it. And it's not who you think you might think it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, the match that they had before Seth Rollins won the world title later that evening, where Seth Rollins jumped up on where they couldn't get the timing right earlier when they were practicing, where Rollins stepped up onto Randy Orton's knee and jumped in the air, and Randy caught him with an RKO, and everyone said, "Oh my God!"
What match was that for? Was that just a match for the sake of a match?
That was just a regular match.
Okay.
Right? And everyone, you remember Rollins getting nailed with it, and you're sitting here. I mean, these guys, that was a fantastic match. We can't sit here and deny it. It was good.
Yeah.
But then you sit here and they solidified that match with the RKO, and you stood there and laughed and said, "Holy shit. Oh my God. Did that just happen?" And that right there, even though I was going to say, you should have gone someplace else, I had to think about that because that's one of the things. That's the WrestleMania moment. You're like, oh my god.
I know you all marked out in my living room for it.
You know, you're just like, wow, holy crap. That's why. That's what made me think about it. I had to go back and like, I remember that. And that makes it a little bit different. But
it is our sincerest hope that this year's WrestleMania gives us some more matches and moments to think about. And hey, everybody out there in Wrestling with Egos Land, this is a great opportunity for you to tweet at us or leave us a comment about your favorite WrestleMania moments. And you can do that in a multitude of ways. You can tweet at the show. It's at WrestlingXEgos on Twitter. I'm at bcrigo15 on Twitter. Isaac is at I4th. Patrick is at Rant Mode On. Leave a comment on YouTube. Leave a comment on Google, however you're interacting with the podcast. We sincerely appreciate all of your feedback. It makes us better, and we crave your feedback very much. Before we ease up on out of here, Isaac, anything else you would like to talk about or get out there before we hit the music?
If anyone has any particular anything specific, you know, WrestleMania moments you want us to critique or review, please give us a shout. Let us know what you think. Tell us if you think we're wrong. Is there a match that you thought that happened during the year that should have happened at WrestleMania? How about that?
There you go.
Was there anybody that got left off that should have been put on? Very similar to that. Let us know. I'm very interested to see what people are going to tell us and how we're going to interact and how that's going to work. Maybe there's something that we're totally missing. Please let us know.
We're not perfect. I mean, we're pretty close, but we're not perfect. So
we're this close to being perfect. That's all I'm saying.
We can almost taste it.
Oh.
For everyone associated with the show, we want to say a heartfelt thank you for consuming our content. Until we meet again, this has been Wrestling with Egos, and you know the tagline. This is why we love professional wrestling. See you next time.
Thank you.